Marangel. I'm speaking to you as a fellow math educator and also the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And I want to welcome you all to our beautiful campus and our beautiful city today. As a math educator, it's really a delight for me to welcome you all here to this very important venue to discuss the social, political, cultural, and ethical dimensions of mathematics education, the very important dimensions that we often don't have time to sit and think hard about. Now more than ever in our world today, we need a scholarly base to frame and move forward math education research along these dimensions. So thank you all for your commitment to this work and for being here. As Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, I want to welcome you to the Portland State University campus. For those of you who it's your first time at Portland State and in Portland, I hope that you're going to have some time to take and explore our wonderful city and all that it has to offer. We have some great weather for you. This is, I'd like to say it's like this all year, but you're here at a great time. And I'd like to especially thank the organizers, the local organizing committee, especially Shapna Mukhopadhyay, Brian Greer, Ann Sittimer, and all of those who have worked tirelessly and put in long hours to ensure that this conference could take place and that it was a success. So please have a wonderful time here. We need your incredible thinking and brains on the issues that you're going to be discussing, and I look forward to hearing more about the conference and its outcomes. Welcome.
What a picture! Again, good morning and welcome. I do have a lovely pleasure this morning. By the way, I'm David Stinson from Georgia State University, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. We are the university of the state of Georgia in the heart of the city of Atlanta, unlike that other one that a lot of people know. But I'm happy to be here because this is my third MES. I was in Berlin 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. Where's 5 years. I was in Cape Town a couple of years ago and now here in Portland. Very excited that Shapna and Brian brought MES to the United States for the first time. So very exciting to welcome so many people that I've grown to. I knew your work before. I met you all in Berlin, and it's great to see you here in my country. Thanks, Brian and Shapna and everyone else for doing such a lovely job of welcoming these people. Very exciting. But I have the pleasure to introduce, and I didn't read my comments because if I don't say half of what I'm supposed to say. I'm introducing Oly Skovsmose as our first speaker for MES 8. And I'm going to begin with a couple points of interest about Oly's professional background. First, Oly's interest in exploring the uncertainty of a critical mathematics education began in the mid to late 1970s. In 1980, 81, and 82, he published 3 short books that explored what a critical mathematics might mean, which were subsequently rewritten in a format for his doctoral thesis in 1982. So in that same year, 1982, he began his 27-year tenure in the Department of Mathematics at Aalborg University. Did I do that? All right. In Denmark. And that 27-year tenure included a 3-year leave of absence between 1996 and 1999 to work at the Royal Danish School of Educational Studies. In 1984, Oly attended his first International Mathematics Education Conference, the 5th International Congress on Mathematical Education held in Australia that year. At IGME 5, he not only heard D'Ambrosio's introduction of ethnomathematics, but a very interesting point to note is that Oly's short oral report on critical mathematics that he had submitted was rejected by 8.5. So this rejection should be a testament to us all. Just because new ideas are more times than none rejected by the establishment does not mean that the idea is not valid. Because since that initial rejection over 25 years ago, Professor Skovsmose's scholarship, which includes more than 20 books and tens of dozens of journal articles, book chapters, and proceeding papers, have become foundational across the globe for those who dare to think differently in regards to the empowering uncertainties of a critical mathematics. In a recent edited volume celebrating the extraordinary contribution to thinking differently that Professor Skovsmose has provided the international mathematics education community, the editors wrote, quote, "Since the publication of the book Toward a Philosophy of Critical Mathematics Education in 1994, the seminal ideas of Oly Skovsmose about mathematics, its role in society, and in mathematics education have become a source of inspiration for innumerable mathematics education researchers and teachers around the world, well beyond the protected borders of Denmark and Scandinavia. The issues that Oly Skovsmose had envisioned to be key aspects of mathematics education in a world concerned with democracy and technological development have come to occupy a more central place in the awareness of the broad international community of mathematics education researchers. His contribution to the field has emerged from a unique combination of philosophical thinking about mathematics in relation to society, educational thinking that emphasizes the politics and sociology of educational processes in mathematics, and pedagogical thinking that connects the philosophical and educational reflections with issues of relevance for the micro-processes of teaching and learning of mathematics. Thus, Oly Skovsmose's work has influenced and spread alternative and significant theoretical ideas for understanding and interpreting mathematics and mathematics education in contemporary societies, unquote. Considering uncertain and exploring philosophical, sociological, pedagogical, and sociological possibilities for mathematics and mathematics teaching and learning are clearly reflected in the titles of Oly's published books since his retirement in 2009. And yes, I said since his retirement, which would give us all pause to think differently about retirement. The most recent English language single author books include In Doubt About Language, Mathematics, Knowledge, and Life Worlds, published in 2009, An Invitation to Critical Mathematics Education, published in 2011, Critique as Uncertainty, which I have not gotten myself yet, published in 2014, and Foregrounds, Opaque Stories About Learning, also published in 2014. His English language edit volumes include University Science and Mathematics in Transition, and that was co-authored with Paulo Valero in 2010. Opening the Cage, Critique and Politics of Mathematics Education, co-edited with Brian Greer in 2012, and Dialogue in Learning and Mathematics Education, Intention, Reflection, and Critique, co-edited with Elie Lebro, which I know I massacred that pronunciation, 2013. In addition to redefining what it means to be retired as an international mathematics education scholar, Professor Skovsmose has also become Oly Skovsmose, the artist. That's just one example of his work. You can find many examples of his works and details of his gallery of showings and openings on his Facebook page that does indeed say Oly Skovsmose, the artist. But on the personal note, I'm going to conclude by saying I cannot say enough about how inspiring and transformative his work in scholarship has been to my own thinking and rethinking about mathematics and mathematics teaching and learning, and to my development as a critical postmodern mathematics education scholar, researcher, and teacher educator. And finally, similar to Peter's remarks yesterday, it's always great to meet folks like Professor Skovsmose at intimate conferences such as Mathematics Education Society. And although I did not meet Oly for the first time at MES conference, it was at a similar structured 2011 conference in Manchester, England, I must tell this story, which will make Oly very happy. At the 2011 conference, I told a couple of Oly's former doctoral students that I was most excited that Oly was attending the conference and that I look forward to getting to finally meet him face to face. I had been using Oly's work ever since I begun my doctoral studies at University of Georgia back in 2000. So at breakfast on the first day of the conference, this man approached me at my breakfast table and said something about Oly. I looked up at him, a bit puzzled, thinking that, my thinking was that maybe something had gotten lost in the translation. I said, yes, I do want to meet Professor Skovsmose, thinking that this man was just another former doctoral student. And then the man replied, well, I'm Oly. Still puzzled, I replied rather frankly, but you can't be, Oly. You're too young. So it is truly with great pleasure this morning that I present to you the forever young and forever inspiring professor and artist, Oly Skovsmose.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I really hope some of it is true, but thank you very much for the introduction. Also, thank you very much for the invitation for me to come here to give the talk. It is a big pleasure. Thank you to Brian, thank you to Swapna. Where is Brian Swapna? There, yeah. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here at the MES conference. I have enjoyed so far, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of the conference here. This is the title of my talk. Well, you might wonder why I'm using this, because it doesn't come out the sound anywhere except in the video. So I'm talking for the video here.
I think a couple of the people in the back might need you to speak up just a little bit, though.
Okay. The title of my talk, what could critical math education mean for different groups of students? And my first comment to the title is that I'm not really going to make any point of making a difference between critical math education and math education for social justice. There might be some, in certain circumstances, might say there is a difference. That's fine. But this is not what I'm going to try to emphasize. In fact, I'm trying to confuse things or blur things. So I'm not going to make a point of this. The title could as well be, what could math education for social justice mean for different groups of students? But now I stick with this, because somehow I like the expression critical math education also. I was walking in the shopping center in Rio Claro, the city where Miramar is living in Brazil, past the bookshop, and the cover of the book was this one. It's a book, The Berço de Desigualdade, The Cradle of Disequality, UNESCO in Brazil, and she was looking at me at the cover. I went by the book immediately. There was something, she looked at me. And I have returned to this picture several times. Also when I was preparing this talk here. What could critical math education mean to different groups of students? What could critical math education mean to her? or imagine, I even imagined that she asked me, what could critical math education mean to me? And it was not so easy. Somehow, looking at the picture, looking into her eyes, and imagine I would say, but it could, yeah. What I want to emphasize, and what this picture has emphasized much to me, is don't be sure about what you are saying. When you say that critical math education means this and that, don't say it with too big safety. It could be different. It could be I've misunderstood. It could be there's something in the context of this girl I don't know about, which makes the story completely different. So everything I'm going to say from now on is really filled with this uncertainty I have I cannot really know the conditions of different students. For instance, just to begin, I don't know what it could mean for her. Anyway, we begin. So what could critical math education mean for different groups of students? We can take a look at this group. It's from the cover of my book, Invitation to Critical Math Education. We can take a look at this picture here. It's two high buildings here. It's in Sao Paulo. They are getting up here. And this is this, and there's no photo trick or anything. It is like this. Here we have this, and here we have that. We can say hello to this student there. And what I'm going to think of now is what I refer to as ghettoized students. This is the first group of students I have in mind. Ghettoizing accompanies globalizing. Ghettoizing accompanies globalizing. So when we are talking about the global society, we also have always to think this is also a ghettoized society. Globalizing is connecting with ghettoizing. Globalizing includes structural violence, where processes of inclusion become mixed with processes of exclusion. And Bauman has a strong quotation here: ghettos and prisons are two varieties of the strategies for tying the undesirable to the ground of confinement and immobilization. It is Bauman who said this in 2001. And he also referred to the modern hyperghetto, the big ghetto, the favela, the extremist way of tying people to the ground. Then I want to remind us, me and you, about the work of Erik Gutstein. He referred to reading and writing the world, and there are many interpretations of this. He proposed math education for social justice, and we have to get this reading and writing the world, and he have many examples, thinking about elections, immigrations, deportations, criminalization, sexism. He have several, and this, when we think of, I think of his approach, then I say, yeah, maybe it would help me to think what could critical math education mean for ghettoized students. I would say, okay, this is a good guess. I'm not saying anything about what students he was saying, if they are ghettoized or not. It is just in my terminology. I would say, I get inspiration from Erik Gutstein. So if I should ask what could critical math education mean for ghettoized students, then somehow I would seek support with Erik Gutstein and many related to his work. Tony Bartel summarized in the following way: mathematics can be effectively used to teach and learn about issues of social injustice, assisting students to develop a critical consciousness that supports them in deepening their knowledge and understanding of the socio-political context of their lives. I like this quotation. Somehow, this is a synthesis of all this approach with critical math education for students in difficult situation, in poor environment, in favelas, in ghettoized students, I think, okay, this, we are still in, somehow have an idea of what this could mean. Here I bring a citation of one of Erik Goodstein's students, Lupus. With every single thing about math that I learned came something else. Something I learned more of other things instead of, sometimes I learned more of other things instead of math. I learned to think of fairness, injustices, and so forth everywhere I see numbers distorted in the world. Now my mind is open to so many new things. I am more independent and aware. I have learned to be strong in every way you can think of it. Okay, this is a powerful summary of a successful story within this way of thinking about reading and writing the world. So Lupus' powerful summary and Tonia's general summary, I like the two summaries. And I have been involved indirectly in this kind of thinking many times. Lately, PhD students of mine, Denival Biotofilio, he worked with students from an orphanage, or children 10 to 12 years old, a little bit more, maybe one younger. And he wanted to do project work there, and they were used to project, and he asked them what projects you do, and they suggested football. And he come to me, and we looked at each other. Well, it's not the first project about football. There's been thousand projects about football. Okay, one more approach, because they want it. Girls and boys want it. And you have to remember, the best female football player in the world come from Brazil. So girls in Brazil also are fascinated. They wanted football. So we planned the project with, it's Martha. We planned the project with football. And there were many activities, also an invitation of professional football players from the local club. And there were many insights. I just give one example. More than half of the professional football players in Brazil earns less than the minimum salary. It's in fact 60% earns less than the minimum salary. This is not what is in the top mind of people. But professional football playing is really a bad job, except for, but in general, more than, 60% earns less than the minimum salary. And we had more insights of this about the conditions of the football players. So this was one part of the project. Then the students made a presentation. I was not there, so I'm only reporting what I heard about the presentation. But it was very emotional, in the sense that the students were so powerful in presenting what they know about football. They presented with microphone and everything. And the adults who were invited and who know them, they were almost with tears, because they had never thought that these students could make such a powerful presentation. This really touched. And in his thesis, Denival described about this, and I'm really also touched by, just imagine this, they stand up and do things nobody have expected. They did it. So there are many things we could think of considering students, ghettoized students. Now we move to this picture. Students. And now I'll talk a bit about students in comfortable positions. Students belonging to the well-protected layers in society. They come from, if you remember the picture with the ghettoized, the swimming pool there and no swimming pool here. We are now moving to the swimming pool side. What could critical math education mean for this group of students? Now we start thinking. We have to do with students, it is upper class or upper middle class, and have upper middle class values, ideas, a background, students in a comfortable position, and we start thinking of critical math education for this group. João Luis Musinati, it's one of my PhD students now, is in the start. His point is to teach these students, but somehow challenge, how could mathematics be used to challenge some of the upper middle class assumptions? This is his idea, principle in his project. So he don't go to the favela or to the ghettoized students, but going to the upper class students. But come to the upper class students with the perspective of critical math education and wondering what this could mean. One of the projects he's planning has to do with, well, he knows the students because he's a mature teacher. He's been teaching them for many years. So he knows the environment, and now he somehow entered this environment as a PhD researcher. For instance, Bolsa de Familia, family support. There is Bolsa de Familia in Brazil, and much discourse about this support to families who, exactly because of the Bolsa de Familia, don't want to work. Now I'm referring to the discourse of much common discourse of the upper middle class. It is really waste of money, etc., etc. You can imagine many discourses related to and laziness. Of course, should we pay with our money for their laziness? So there are many assumptions. It is also shared in the classroom, shared among the students. So there he has started addressing how could he challenge this via project in math education. And there are many things in Bolsa de Familia, how much money is in fact going with, how many percentage would you reduce your income of a high-class family with the contribution, etc. So there are many calculations you can imagine. Then I return to Tonia Bartel's citation. Mathematics can be effectively used to teach and learn about issues of social justice, assisting students, and here is his point, and also students in comfortable positions to develop a critical consciousness that support them in deepening their knowledge and understanding of the social political context of their lives. For me, this is a very important task, but it's also different from in the previous Ghettoized students. And you can imagine, we have many other students, but we really need to pay attention to this. What could this mean for this group of students, and how to do it? Because it's not the same approach. I don't know exactly what approach. In 2 years, Musinati would come out with something, and then we are so far. He is into it, but he is not through it. Any talk has an introduction. Yeah. And now we take the introduction because the introduction is about notions, notion of empowerment, autonomy, freedom, and social justice. These notions who are used to characterize critical math education and math education for social justice. We use these notions. And there are other notions, it's a little bit more related to mathematics, like mathematical agency, mathemacy, reading and writing the world with mathematics. We like these notions. They go, we use the notions when we characterize these approaches. We also have to think a little bit about the modernity and the meta-narratives of modernity, because such grand notions get some of their meaning when interpreted as part of the meta-narratives of modernity. They get some meaning. And then Lyotard says the following. The movement towards postmodernity is described as a transition in the attitudes towards meta-narratives. In modernity, meta-narratives were used to legitimize actions, whereas postmodernity is defined as a way of thinking where meta-narratives are rejected or tranquilated. This is the Lyotard's comment. Lyotard is directly inspired by Wittgenstein. And somehow, not to follow fashion, I prefer somehow to step a little bit into the Wittgenstein terminology. Wittgenstein talk about language game, different language game, without having a big language, but language games is somehow in parallel. And I like this metaphor of language games. I like this multiplicity of perspectives which are included in this notion of language games. So as a consequence, we should be ready to operate with decompositions of the modern meta-narratives, including some of the accompanying grand notions. We should be ready to assume a variety of possible interpretations of empowerment, autonomy, freedom, social justice, mathematical agency, mathemacy, reading, etc. We should be ready to see there could be different interpretations, meaning that what could critical math education mean for different groups of students? We could expect rather different answers. For instance, remembering these students for the orphanage, empowerment is the empowerment that they see something about the social condition of professional football player. Certainly this is empowerment. It's also the empowerment to stay with the microphone in hand and do it. Maybe it's different notions of, anyway, we are ready now to look for different interpretations of empowerment and related notions. So this was the introduction. Then we continue. Here we have a student. The photo is by Renato Marcone, who was supposed to be here joining the conference, but it was not possible for him to join. Looks a little bit different. Maybe here you see what it's about. We have to do with blind and deaf students. Here they are discussing what sign to use for a particular geometric figure, what finger, because somehow you have to develop the sign as mathematics goes forward. It's Sales, also a PhD student. He has finished now. Here he is again. This is deaf students, and this is clearly blind students. I've been the supervisor of Renato Marcone, who's finishing his PhD this year. But when we started, and when he started, he said, I would like to research math education and blind students. I said, fine, okay, we find out. And I started sending email around to people around the world, editors of big books. You know, math education, research in math education in blindness. It's interesting. It's interesting. Actually, I did, and I got more and more surprised. Because I had imagined there was some researcher, some group, I just have to find the group. And we looked around, and then one said, it's Lula Healy. Lula Healy is somehow our colleague in Brazil, organizing a group of blind students and deaf students together with Miriam. So in the whole world, we somehow ended home and realized it. It is, in fact, not so many people into this blind. There is research in blindness, but math education in blindness. And we thought, but why math education for social justice in blindness? But somehow it has been missing. It has in fact been missing in math education research. Now I jump a little bit to some notions. You can look at the bottom. The title of Renato's thesis, Deficentialismo, an invention of deficiency by normality. Invention of deficiency by normality. In deficentialismo, you need to know in Portuguese. When you have a seat, the normal note is not disability. For deficient people, they sit there. This is the normal notion there. Disabilidade now does not exist in Portuguese. Anyway, we Hinato and I was a bit fascinated by Orientalism, Said. It's a conception of the East by the West and for the West. Deficentialism nominates some groups as suffering a deficiency, and it provides conception of what this group is able to do and not to do. Deficentialism expresses a conception of the other by the we and for the we. Somehow we took this notion there, say, there is something what Edward Said have said about Orientalism and the Orient. We could reinterpret this concept there. In the most literal sense, reading and writing the world with mathematics is a challenge to blind students. In simple, directly. There's no, you can be metaphorically also, but in the most direct way. One particular feature of deficentialism concerns mathematics. It has been broadly assumed that mathematics, and in particular more advanced studies in mathematics, is not for blind students. This is an expression of deficentialism. And challenging this has to do with empowerment and autonomy. Maybe a different way of thinking of empowerment we think for blind people or deaf people. I come to the deaf people but we say there could be other ways of thinking, but we need to think of empowerment with this group of students as well. Ableism, it's another more the English word for deficentialism. Ableism is a form of discrimination against people with disabilities. Ableism can also be referred to disability, etc. Ableism has been discussed and presented by Rossi de Souza, who is just sitting here. Ableism and deficentialism, it is two notions, maybe one more Portuguese and one more English. We see how it goes. But it is important to discuss this notion with reference to different group of students. And here is more reference. Lysandra is addressing blind students, and her project is about creating learning environment for blind students, which at the same time is environment for visual students. So you don't need to put the blind there and the visual there. It's the same topics, the same material, which is useful for blind students and visual students. Sarles is the one who addressed the deaf students, and there are many things about the language there because it's relating what is the common language for deaf students. It's another language. How to relate this, and what does empowerment mean to dominate the mathematical language with the sign language. There are many things about empowerment there. We continue. Here's a photo. All the photos are made by Luciano. I thought I had the picture of Luciano. But he is the one who have made and finished the PhD study with regard to old students. People who are retired, and it was not in a school setting, but he did mathematics with retired people. Some older than others. Just look at the pictures again. So what could critical method education mean for old people, retired people, we pensionists? What could it mean? And I make some quotation here. I cannot come to think of anything I did not like. All interest me because I learned in my brain. It opened our minds, me and my wife. It opened our reasoning. We began working with the mind. Got it? And you can hear, it's not, we are in a different environment. It's different. We also hear stories, even in these quotations here, about empowerment. But is it the same empowerment, or is it different empowerment? What are we? I like tangram, bingo, Möbius bands. And so these activities stretch the memory. Sometimes one forgets things, no memory. But mathematics has helped. I remember well numbers. There are things you continue thinking about. It enters your daily life. this provides the quality of people's life. Comment, so we could take the pictures again. I think here it's information from the reading the newspaper. So they did the reading the newspaper just as Erik Goodstein would think of it. They did it this. They also did this, and one said they enjoyed it. We have the Euler-Polyeder theorem was discussed, formulated, tested, and worked with. The Möbius band cutting this, and I imagine if you take this empowerment, you cut, and one did a prediction, what happened, and it worked. Is that empowerment? It's not really political empowerment, but there's, we have to think, what does this kind of activity mean for this group of students? And old students is also students from the perspective of critical mathematics education. We need to think of it. Mathematics can provide new possibilities for reading and writing the world. Mathematics can provide new personal experience. Now I'm thinking of the old students. Mathematics can open for new possibilities within the environment of the family, helping the grandchildren with the school, listening to this. Is that empowerment? You decide. But we are open to, if there are different stories about empowerment, we could consider what this could mean also. For sure it is important for we grandparents to be able to talk with our grandchildren. It's another picture. It is from this Verso de Desigualdade. I can tell you this is from Kurdistan, and the Iraq part of Kurdistan. It's students going to school, and it's cold in the winter, so they have to bring a little bit branch to put in the heating the classroom. So this is the reason. Here we have Movimento Sem Terra, a school of them. And now I have to call it other students. And let us return to Edward Said in Renato again. Orientalism provides conceptions of the East by the West and for the West. It provides conception of the other by the we and for the we. Deficentialism provides conception of the other is able to do and not able to do. Deficentialism nominates inferiority and superiority. Any group of students can be nominated as the other. This somehow we have to be aware of. Whenever we took, then somehow they are different. The other, it could be ethnic groups. It could be children from an orphanage. The other could not, they are the other. They could not do it. They did it. It could be ghettoized students, it could be blind students, it could be deaf students, any kind of group of students could suddenly become the other, and we are making theories about what these other students are able to do and not able to do. Challenging deficentialism or ableism in its many different forms is a principal task of critical math education. Challenging the conception, preconception of what other groups can do and not do, for instance, blind students cannot do, etc. It is a task to challenge deficentialism in all possible forms. And this has to do with deficentialism, challenge this has to do with there's so many different ways of thinking of empowerment. We look at this. We look at this. University students in mathematics. What does critical math education mean for university students in mathematics? It's the normal university students. It's good to think a little bit about mathematics. Mathematics makes integral part of the so-called scientific revolution. We have Descartes, we have Newton, and Descartes formulated three laws of nature. Not exactly the same laws as Newton, but more or less the same. And he said, these laws are laws for nature. It is laws made by God. Because this was what they were thinking at the time. The natural laws was traffic laws for particles made by God. Newton believed in God. So it was given that, and this was a fantastic revealment, that God had used mathematics to create the world. If you could do mathematics, you can somehow read the thoughts of God. He was smarter in mathematics than we, even Newton. This everybody knew, but it was the same mathematics. He used the same mathematics. And if we could do mathematics, we could somehow see what he has been doing and understand what he has been doing. The mathematics was the structure, provided the structure of God's creation. And this is the reason that Newton was obsessed by reading the Bible. He was really studying even more time the Bible than studying physics. Because if God had made it, he might have put a signature somewhere. Yeah, a great artist put the signature. Why not this? And he imagined that if you read the numbers in the Bible, the proportion of the temple or something, it will be the same proportion somewhere in the universe. Of course, it must be like this. So he could find the right proportion in the Bible. He will know the distance between the earth and the sun, and so on, and so on, and so on. Anyway, this was the idea. But out of this came what I call the modern conception or modern celebration of mathematics. Mathematics has been celebrated ever since. Also when we passed this idea about God made the universe and so on. Mathematics is the rationality with intrinsic good qualities. Mathematics is the language of science and technology. Mathematics ensures neutrality and objectivity to the procedure of which it makes part. These ideas makes part of the modern conception of mathematics. And this modern conception of mathematics dominates, to a large extent, studies at universities also today. And this is a sad story. And exactly this story need to be challenged. The modern conception of mathematics stimulates a particular reading of the world with mathematics. Reading of the world is not the only reading when we think of Goodstein or critical math. There's profound readings of the world in mathematics, somehow related to the modern conception of mathematics, that this reading is a good reading, a right reading. If we somehow if we remember the comments yesterday by Ubi about the disaster, then we can say mathematics might help to solve some of the disasters by reading. But as emphasized also by Ubi, the reading by mathematics is also part of the disaster, has made to create, so mathematics is operating in two cases. The sad story is, in many cases, university studies provides a formation of a one-dimensional and non-reflective expertise in mathematics, an expertise in mathematics, not an expertise about mathematics, reflecting about what is done with mathematics. And for me, this is crucial, to challenge this one-dimensional expertise in mathematics in any kind of university studies with mathematics. To critical math education, it is crucial to establish critical reflections about mathematics as integral part of any university studies in mathematics. So I'm really concerned with university studies in mathematics, which is very homogeneous the world around in formating a one-dimensional expertise. The notions of mathematical agency, mathemacy, also have an interpretation with respect to university students in mathematics. We cannot ignore university students. It's important to look at poor students in poor environment. I agree completely with this. we also need to look at the situation for university students, challenge university students. Engineering students. Mathematics makes part of all kinds of engineering studies. Electrical engineering, you name it. Mathematics makes part of this. And we find in engineering studies, I use engineering studies a bit broadly. We find all kinds of mathematical courses, calculus 1, calculus 2, etc., etc. Mathematics is everywhere in the engineering. There's nothing called engineering without mathematics. This is the situation today. No engineering without mathematics. Mathematics is everywhere. Not even in the studies, but also in the output. We find mathematics brought in operation as integral part of any kind of technologies. Automatization, surveilling, medical treatment, radiotherapy, drones that can deliver small parcels to the customers or big bombs to the enemy. They could do it. We find mathematics in any advanced weapon system. In crawlers, you look at the email and search a hotel, and then they start popping up on your computer announcement from this hotel when you search other things. There's something, it is a crawler, it's a mathematical algorithm. The web page ranking, you search something on the web page, something is popping up. It's a mathematical construction. Yeah, mathematics in the web page ranking. In risk management and strategies for to be applied at the stock market, etc. There's mathematics everywhere. These are examples of writing and reading and writing the world. Not the reading and writing we have been thinking of, but it is powerful writing of the world, brutal writing of the world. It is writing of the world, and we need to think that we have to challenge this writing also. Mathematics-based action can have any kind of qualities. And here I like very much to repeat, I'm not going to do it, but Ubi's talk about when we are based on that, it could have any kind of qualities, or he emphasized the disastrous qualities, but also the possibility maybe of doing something. Mathematics-based action can have any kind of qualities. They can be effective, risky, cost-efficient, benevolent, horrifying, cynical, well, etc. Whatever you have, adverb or it could be there. They can create profit for some, generate new workplaces for several, and cause unemployment, etc. They could, mathematics-based action can have any kind of implications. They are in need of reflections. And for me, thinking of engineering studies, I'm thinking in terms of a critical professionalism. It is an expertise in doing and about doing. You need to be expert in what you are doing, but also an expert in reflecting about what you're doing. So I'm not saying that any expert should not be able to do what they are. They need to be good in making algorithms and so on, but they need a professionalism about doing. I give courses for PhD students in technical disciplines at Aalborg University. And when we are somehow in a good harmony, then I use a more brutal metaphor. I talk about the banality of expertise. And of course, I have Hannah Arendt's conception, the banality of evil in mind. It was Adolf Eichmann in the process in Jerusalem. And Adolf Eichmann was not any brutal person. He was somehow a nice, had organized things and didn't get the point that he had done something wrong because he did the bookkeeping, so many trains, so many paths here. Everything was, he did what he should do as a nice, good technical person. And it was people to the Auschwitz, to the, it was not, it was the process, he did it. And she talked about the banality of evil, because maybe when she was covering this trial there, had the mind that she meant a Nazi. No, he was the man who had been sitting on his desk and was somehow still sitting on his desk. So he referred to this as the banality of evil. And I talk about, it was a one-dimensional expertise for sure. It was one-dimensional. And I refer to the banality of expertise. When you have a one-dimensional expertise, you are able to do this and this and this, and do it. And if somebody says, now you do this, you do it this and this and this, and do it. And you need to do it faster, you do it faster. But what you are doing, I'm not saying that if you're working in a company, you can do revolution in a company. This is not what I'm saying. I'm talking about a critical professionalism where you are educated in doing and reflecting about doing. This is part of your professionalism. And one could say, okay, now I talked a little bit about this and that students here and there. What about the normal students? Just couldn't you say something about the normal students? So let us take a look at some of the normal students. Here they come, all the normal students. And my favorite normal students are there. Enjoy the conference. Thank you.
I want to begin by thanking Oly for those very inspiring comments. Very much appreciated. I too have followed your work and been inspired to become and instantiate the identity of a critical math educator. So I very much appreciate the comments today and the work that you've provided us for many, many years. I also want to thank Brian and Shapna for inviting me to respond to your comments today. I was on a heavy traveling road tour, and I was very, very close to declining, but given the two wonderful people that they are and some of the folks that I know here, I decided to definitely attend. So as many of you know, Oly, the paper in the proceedings is not the paper that he delivered here, and I had the very basics of the talk that he presented. So I was left with the task of trying to channel his inner thoughts between the time that I got the basic outline and today to prepare my own response. And I prepared what I think addresses some of the points that you've made, so we'll see. If not, then we will join the two together and try to make some sense of it. So I did get the title, What Could Critical Mathematics Education Mean for Different Groups of Students? And I decided to formulate a critical response. And I'll start with this question. So how do we understand 4 plus 9? Okay, so how do we understand 4 plus 9? And taking Oly's cue in using visual imagery to set the stage for his presentation, I decided to do the same. And I want to begin with this moment in U.S. history. How many of you recognize this moment? This is from U.S. civil rights, U.S. American history. September 15th, 1963, at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. A bomb was placed under the church steps, and it led to destruction, killing 4 young black girls, 11-year-old Carol Denise McNair, 14-year-olds Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, and Carol Robertson. A number of other people were injured. Robert Dynamite Bob Chambliss, a member of the racial terror group, the Ku Klux Klan, was finally retried in 1977 and found guilty of murder. 1963 to 1977, finally found guilty of murder. That's my first image. How many of you are familiar with this moment in U.S. history? Just a few days ago, June 7th, 2015, at the Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. The victims' names here, Cynthia Hurd, and I'll read these names going this way, and this way. Cynthia Hurd, 54. Clementa Pinckney, 41, who was a state senator. Sharonda Coleman Singleton, 45. Daniel Simmons, 74. And the woman in the middle, in the very center, I've highlighted her name, DePayne Middleton Doctor, 49. Tywanza Sanders, 26. Myra Thompson, 59. Susie Jackson, 87. Ethel Lee Lance, 70. And they also found the person who committed this atrocity. This person walked into a church, sat with the worshipers for an hour or so, had a moment of pause, and then shot these 9 individuals, killing them, and left some survivors so that they could tell his story. Arrested him the next day in an adjoining state. And his name was Dylan Roth. Dylan Roth. I won't project this picture. Don't want to give him any further publicity, but I do want to share with you this excerpt from what they think is his manifesto that he left behind. So this is online. They think this is his manifesto. And both of those incidents were rooted in a certain kind of hatred and a certain kind of ideology. And in explaining his motives, he says, "I have no choice. I'm not in the position to, alone, go into the ghetto and fight. I chose Charleston because it is the most historic city in my state and at one time had the highest ratio of blacks to whites in the country. We have no skinheads, no real KKK, no one doing anything but talking on the internet. Well, someone has to have the bravery to take it to the real world, and I guess that has to be me." Okay. So this is another image. Hopefully I don't get too emotional here. This is Luella Middleton. She is a mother, a grandmother, and an aunt. The young, beautiful girl standing next to her is her niece. Luella Middleton is my mother. Yeah. And I projected the 9 victims on the previous screen. I highlighted one, the woman in the middle. When the news reports came across the airwaves naming the victims, my mom and sister, one of my sisters, were at home, and my sister was in front of the TV, and she heard the name, Middleton. Middleton. Mom, that's the Middleton. My mom has family in South Carolina. She remembers as a child going with her own mother to South Carolina in the summers and visiting that church. My mom is 73. She has images and pictures of family members, some who she's close to, some who she doesn't remember. And she started digging. Middleton, South Carolina. What could be the connection? Let me find out. Making phone calls, frantic phone calls. Who is this person? Who is this person? Who is this person? Clearly, because of the chaos that was going on, she couldn't get to the center of the activity, but she could get to a friend of a friend or a family member who was close or far away, and discovered that, and we're fairly certain of this at this point, talking to her as late as last night, that the woman you see here in the middle, DePayne Middleton Doctor is her married name, and the woman you see here are related. How might they be related? DePayne Middleton Doctor is my mother's deceased brother's daughter. So this is a part of the family that I don't know. Her brother passed away, so that link is gone for us, and so we didn't have the close connections. But she's tracking down information. She's pulling out pictures, sending me pictures over the text messages to say so-and-so is connected to him and he's connected to her. And this would make the victim in the middle my first cousin. I didn't know this. I did not know this. So racial terror has hit very close to home to someone who identifies as a critical math educator. And so it raises a number of questions for me and a number of responses about the incident, but also a number of responses on behalf of my mother. What I find more interesting than my response is the response of the victims' families to this shooter. And although there are a number of emotions associated with that act, this is the one that is probably most surprising for me, given the tragedy. We forgive you. That's not particular. That's not particular to this set of families. I was telling my colleagues at dinner yesterday, my sense of time is off, but I was telling my colleagues that from my perspective, black people are a very forgiving people. We're asked to endure quite a bit, stand up straight, be peaceful, be pacified in the face of tremendous dehumanization. But yet we forgive you. So I respect the views of the family, and at some point I may get to that point as well. But on behalf of my mother and those families, my response is not quite this tempered, but it's somewhere close, probably a little bit more indignant. But this is from Dr. Martin Luther King. He says, "For years, I labored with the idea of reforming the existing institutions of society, a little change here, a little change there. Now I feel quite differently. I think you've got to have a reconstruction of the entire society, a revolution of values." So here are the questions that I want to pose to Oly and others with respect to critical math education, where I try to do my work as well. So where's the call for righteous anger in critical math education? Empowerment, agency, mathematical empowerment, mathematical agency. But where's the call for righteous anger? Not hatred, but righteous anger in critical math education. And the second question I have is critical math education truly liberatory and emancipatory, or does it represent a little change here, a little change there? That's certainly a danger. Particular projects in this city, a project in this city, a project here, an effort here, little changes in a system that doesn't value black life, for example, and other kinds of lives. And where does critical math education stand and demonstrate unequivocal action against anti-black racism, racial terror, and global white supremacy? And Oly mentioned globalization in one part of your comments, and I wanted to move beyond globalization in sort of its economic terms, its neoliberal terms, and talk about the global racial order, just to remind us that it's not incidents like these in isolation. We're talking about across the globe. And I think it's worth reading this particular conceptualization of globalization. It says, globalization is a re-racialization of the world. What have come to be called North-South issues are also deeply racial issues. The disparities in status and the life chances between the world's rich and poor regions, between the largely white and wealthy global North and the largely dark-skinned and poor global South, have always possessed a racial character. Through a worldwide pattern of employment discrimination, violence, morbidity, impoverishment, pollution, and unequal exchange that shares a great deal with its colonial antecedents, this global system of stratification correlates very well with racial criteria. The darker your skin is, the less you earn, the shorter your lifespan, the poorer your health and nutrition, the less education you can get. So I return to the questions, where's the call for righteous anger in critical math education? Is critical math education truly liberatory and emancipatory, or does it represent a little change here, a little change there? And where does critical math education stand and demonstrate unequivocal action against anti-black racism, racial terror, and global white supremacy? Thank you.